Today we are going to discuss about it, how NGOs are formulated and what kind of NGOs are there. NGOs can be a trust, society or a company. Let's understand from the company point of view how a NGO can be formed. A Section 8 company can be formed as an NGO. Its main purpose is to promote education, health. Its basically purpose is to do the social welfare of the society. The first question in mind comes, is it difficult to make? Not at all. It's very easy. It's a very simple process and it can be incorporated very easily. Lot of benefits are there, like tax benefits are there, very easy to formulate. We got a lot of grants and rebates from the government. So if you have any query related to this topic, you can just below number. Thank you so much.